Yeah, so I guess we'll just kind of get started as people flow in. Today we have a very exciting Marcus Hour. We're talking about big major projects, navigating insurance for large major projects and condominiums and other kind of hot topics in that realm. Basically, dealing with large projects, dealing with capital projects, what you should do as a manager, what you should do as a board, and also how it ties into the insurance implications, and large projects on that end, what you should do at the beginning before a large project gets started, uh, during, and also what you should do after as it relates to insurance in particular. And on that note, we have a very special guest. It's Valentine's Day in July, as we have Valentine Feeney, a partner at Alera Group. He's been a risk management and insurance strategy specialist, guides boards and property managers in particular,
But with the Alera group,
with the Alera Group.
so
Yes,
we don't
exactly.
cause any confusion here.
Yes, exactly. So he's a partner at Alera Group, and he has been involved for over a decade. Is that right, Val?
Yep, 15 years.
Very good. And so he's worked with associations nationwide, as well as in New England, um, uh, based out of Walpole, Massachusetts. And he is can provide some effective and uh very tailored to your association, which is something that we'll get into. Kind of, it's not a one size fits all approach, especially when it comes to capital projects, um, and large projects of that nature, to make sure that you're addressing it as it fits to your case. Very case by case analysis that goes into that. Same thing with renewals, insurance in general. We don't say one of our general kind of tips or tidbits is we try to you don't just say, oh, we just need insurance for our condo. That can vary. You want to make sure that you get the proper coverages in place, D&O, general, and different types of insurance that we have discussed in other sessions. But that's a little more of a broad range approach. Again, this is the Marcus Hour, and I will get the slideshow started as we introduce our usual host. Stephen Marcus is along with me. The
I'm the
original.
one. I'm on the one on the right top.
He's yeah, he's the one on the which one, which right are you talking about?
The one that's not the picture of some old man with the largest, either the largest cheekbones in the world or the fattest man in the world. And I did hear about the big guy who had metal on him, who was recently, it was tragic. He was killed. He was sucked into an MRI machine because he was wearing metal.
Oh,
But
jeez.
but I digress. But Jake, can I give my the 2 minute thing I spoke about?
Yes.
Thank you. So things change rapidly in this business. For me, the last thing I learned of importance relating to insurance was at about 10:30 p.m. last night. And it relates to the 8 point something, the huge earthquake in Russia, which is causing a tsunami with concerns, grave concerns in Hawaii, Alaska, Japan, uh, the West Coast. And yes, first of all and foremost, our thoughts and prayers are with the people in those areas, that everybody end up safe. But how it relates to the larger insurance issue for condominiums, community associations is, without knowing anything yet, I'm guessing that the loss to the carriers from this event that nobody could have predicted, as far as I can tell, will be in the billions. I mean, Val would know better than I, but the 10 million, 10 billion with a B, or more would, 100 billion, nothing would surprise me because I don't know enough yet of what the impact's going to be. But so why do we care if, say, you're in New England? Well, insurance carriers are in the business of making money like most businesses are. And if they have a $100 billion hit, somehow they make it up. How do they make it up? They increase premiums. Maybe they hit the people in those areas more, but this is such an unusual event that I'm not sure it'll be the case. But I have a feeling that you may be feeling the pain, just as you were getting used to premium settling down a little bit for condominium associations. Life in the condominium world is always fast-paced and furious. And last night, I think, is another game changer. So with that, let me turn it back to Val and for Jake for what you're really here to hear about.
Thanks, Stephen. And yes, that's a good point where, something that happens across the nation, insurance-wise, may affect different areas of the country and the insurance approach across the nation into different regions. We saw it with the Surfside collapse in Florida. That was a big, unfortunate, tragic event that occurred and has still, I mean, while Florida's in a pretty big insurance crisis, that is definitely still affecting other areas of the nation as it's a business, and a lot of other areas are affected as a result. But today, yeah, we're getting into large major projects and condominiums and other areas, and kind of what goes into a major project at a condominium association. Usually, these are needed projects or projects that a big roof repair or something of that nature. Val, what are some of the big projects that I guess you kind of see a lot in your field and that are affecting from the insurance perspective that you see are affecting the association?
Yeah. First off,
And maybe with that is, did Surfside trigger, as I think it might have, and we know about the building in Cambridge where there's the risk of a collapse and the city has cordoned off areas and it's tragic. If it's anybody's fault, it goes back to whoever built it 40 or 50 years ago, whenever it was built. But that was triggered by a structural inspection or an inspection in 2023. I don't think it's a coincidence that Surfside goes down on June 24th, 2021, and the reaction is more and more condominium associations are getting these structural and facade inspections and all. And it's great in terms of maintaining the building, but can be horrific in terms of one, the costs, and then getting association loans and all of that kind of stuff. And the other issue, as you all know, is Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will then consider the project ineligible for loans from them until all of the work is complete. So I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, all good, all good. Stephen and Jake, thanks for having me once again. Val Feeney from Alera Group. I'm a property and casualty expert here based out of Boston. I work with condo associations nationwide. To answer your first question, I think the most common projects we see these days is a full roof replacement, which can be very complex on large, multiple building or high-end condominium associations. And the exterior facade is also another very, very common one we're seeing, as well as your full-blown renovation to common areas throughout the association. And then, one point to kind of jump on Stephen's tangent about Fannie and Freddie. As an insurance professional, I do feel the frustration from associations because the property insurance market has been in the worst condition it's been over the last 7 years, probably in its history, recorded history. And instead of becoming more lenient with insurance requirements during that time, associations were having a hard time finding even basic coverage. No, they went the opposite direction and they ratcheted up their requirements on associations, which then led to a whole slew of unit owners not being able to sell their individual units because the association couldn't find the required insurance in the marketplace, usually or sometimes at no fault to their own. So definitely a hot button issue. So today, I think, between the legal side and the insurance side, we want to give, viewers the practical tools they can use tomorrow, whether you're a manager, a board member, or a contractor work in these communities. The session isn't about selling you on anything. It's about clarity. If you leave here understanding the key questions to ask prior to a large renovation or capital improvement, and knowing when to get the professional help or when to pull in the experts, we've done our job.
Excellent. Appreciate that, Val. And yeah, that's a good segue into, what we're looking at today and an overview of the session today. Again, this is supposed to be an interactive process, kind of a informal but educational session where we kind of provide insight on what we're seeing, but also we encourage as many questions or comments throughout. We know you can't shout at us through the screen, but I think there's a way to bring you up on stage potentially as a participant. We may hold off on that for today, but if you have questions, type in the chat, Q&A, and comment on whatever you may be seeing in your positions as either manager, board members, contractors, what have you. And what are kind of some of the best practices from every perspective, what you see. If you're a contractor, what would you look to advise the condo on, whether it's whether they have potential grounds for heading into litigation, whether they are starting the project, what kind of things you need to look for, whether you do the work, if it's preventative. I know Val mentioned exterior facades, and roofs, and things of that nature that are important to ensure that are fixed appropriately, but also expeditiously. So we'll get into kind of what we see as far as whether it's board members or managers, and kind of some of the common mistakes that we see when it comes to addressing, or not even mistakes, but what we see as best practices for moving forward in addressing large, multi-million-dollar projects. How do you properly bring in the right experts to review the issues? How do you determine how to implement a plan and, from our legal perspective, what to do as far as litigation, and how to approach that? And then also, filing insurance claims, figuring out what insurance you have in place before it even happens, is also a prophylactic measure that can be considered. And then what you do during the project, keeping the unit owners informed, determining what to kind of what to do as far as cost effectiveness for the association, getting a loan, we discussed Fannie and Freddie getting involved. Are you going to be restricted from getting a loan? Just different things and different strategies to consider when it comes to these large capital projects.
One thing to note, Jake, is for people on the call, either Monday or Tuesday, everybody who signed up will receive the recording of this webinar, the PowerPoint, and at least summary answers, not to be taken as legal advice or insurance advice, go to your own trusted advisors, but something to give a little guidance in terms of your questions. What I'm interested in is so associations are getting these loans, biting the bullet on a $5 million project, whatever the amounts are, and the screen that's up, common mistakes boards make. We don't really mean that. We mean what are mistakes boards and managers can avoid and how to avoid them, because we don't expect that any manager or board member should know the answers to the questions such as what insurance should the design professionals and contractors have. So you don't have to know everything, but I'd be really interested in hearing from Val as to what he believes um, the association and the manager and the attorney for the association should be looking at when these projects come in and you're bringing in architects, engineers, contractors, hubs. Who do you have control over? What protections? Um, Val, take it away.
Yeah, sounds good. If we want to jump into the next slide, I think
Yeah, that's the next slide.
yep,
Yep.
we can dive right in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
let's
think
do
so.
it.
Yeah, so I think, the contractor's insurance requirements. So, first and foremost, a board is likely going to hire or use their property manager as a bit of a construction manager during the process, or they'll hire a third party project manager for this type of work. So the first thing the board wants to do is make sure that they have a contract that basically transfers their risk for a fee from themselves to the project manager or the property manager that they're hiring to oversee the project. And that same contract will then filter down to the general contractor. So I think first and foremost, kind of your risk transfer is super important. And then I believe Stephen alluded to the board and what they're communicating to the association. Nowadays, I think, especially since Surfside, boards are being targeted. It's no longer a volunteer gig where you did it just because you can add some value and you have some free time. That's a great pie in the sky belief. But the issue now with so many lawsuits and the litigation surrounding communities, you really have to protect yourself. And the best way to do that is transferring risk to experts you hire, and also being super transparent with your board minutes to the association. Those essentially will help defend any decisions you make on behalf of the association. So that being said, we're going to dive right into the types of insurance that your contractor should have. Why it matters is the contractor's insurance is your first line of defense if something goes wrong. So think property damage, an injury on the site, or an accident involving any of the subs or contractors' vehicles coming in and out of the property. Those are kind of typical here. But the pitfalls we see constantly is boards assume that if a contractor has a certificate of insurance that lists them as a cert holder, or hell, even an additional insured AI, that everything is covered. But that's just not the case. In reality, most insurance certificates don't tell the full story at all. They miss details, and those missing details, such as important endorsements and exclusions, can actually leave the association exposed to hundreds of thousands of dollars in the event of a major issue. So it is really important to go just deeper than the general, insurance cert that you kind of hear so much about.
And one thing that touches just quickly into the legal, but it's on your end as well, you see it all the time, is it drives me crazy, maybe because I've been doing this for so long, but I discovered decades ago that certificates of insurance are useless. If you look at the Accord form, in the bold print at the top, it basically says that, let's say on the additional insured, the Val said AI, it's not artificial intelligence this time, it's additional insured. The form says this form does not confer any rights on the certificate holder. You may only be added to as an additional insured by an endorsement to the policy by the carrier. In other words, the local insurance agent, Val can't just, you ask for something at 12, oh, I need it at 12:30. He can't just send you out something. He needs the carrier to issue the endorsement. So, so that be careful in terms, maybe Val's going to get into that on verification, but I think the biggest mistake I've seen is everybody accepts certificates of insurance. Attorneys, everybody.
Yep, and very common. And I'll give one quick example before I dive into these coverages that I think highlights what you just said. One of the biggest exclusions I see, or most common exclusions I see when it comes to general contractors and subcontractors insurance policies these days, is an exclusion for residential condominium associations. The insurance industry does not like large condo associations anymore for obvious, for the reasons why you have a hard time getting an insurance. And general contractors and subcontractors aren't, and their agents, unfortunately, some of them aren't paying attention to the exclusion. So if something goes wrong and your board or their insurance agent didn't review the exclusions, and that pesky residential condominium association exclusion is in there, there's no coverage from the general contractor. So that's why this stuff is important. And I digress, but we just wanted to highlight why exclusions and endorsements matter other than just their certificate of insurance. So I'm not going to get too much into the weeds on these, but these are just kind of the basic things that you need to see. So from a general, we're talking about the general contractor, you hired him for your project, and this is the coverage that you need to verify on your own as the board or with your project manager. They need to have general liability, which protects against bodily injury or property damage caused by the contractor's work. Generally speaking, $1 million per occurrence and $2 million aggregate are the minimum here, with higher limits for large projects, and we'll get into that. You want to ensure your association is listed as an additional insured, and that coverage is primary and non-contributory. So your policy isn't tapped first. You're going to use the general contractor's insurance if something goes wrong. And you got workers' compensation, which covers injuries to the contractor's employees. That's absolutely mandatory. If they don't have it and someone is hurt, your association will be liable. So you want to verify that coverage applies in your state to all subcontractors. The state of Massachusetts, for example, and most states do, they have websites where you can plug in your contractor's name and zip code, and it will pull up their workers' comp policy and if it's effective or if it's in force. And then lastly is auto liability. Covers accidents involving contractor owned or hired vehicles on site. Again, minimum of $1 million. Key for projects where materials are constantly delivered or hauled away, or you have dozens of employees on the job site every day. We'll get into the umbrella coverage. That's also a requirement, but for now, we'll jump down to the recommended limits. And sorry if I'm flying here. I just want to touch on the key points, and then we can do some follow-up if needed. For major capital projects, I'll say 6 figures or higher, or 7 figures, you got to have $1 million on your GL and your auto liability. Plus, the contractor has to have umbrella coverage or excess liability coverage. For the sake of this conversation, we'll consider them the same, even though they're slightly different. The contractor has to have an umbrella. In today's day and age, for a large project, they have to have a minimum of a $5 million umbrella. Just there's no way around that. They're going to pass the cost onto the board. That's fine, but they need to have that in place. Your association's own umbrella won't extend to the contractor. That's not what your umbrella is for. So the general contractor's limits must stand alone on their own. All right. Next, we want to talk about verification. How do you verify this stuff? Yep. Sorry. Go ahead. Anyone?
Is it safe to say that, as a side note, that if you're saying 5 million for contractors, that for associations, the 1 million, 2 million, that is crazy, and that you're looking at least 5 million, 10 million, 25 million, 50 million, 100 million. We had the double murder in the Penthouse condominium in South Boston. I believe this, I don't know what the settlement was, it was confidential, but I'm under the impression that it was probably over $20 million. What do you do if you have $2 million of insurance and a board or the manager have to go to a unit owners meeting and say that they're short by $18 million and every unit owner is going to be assessed? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I definitely get it. I do believe we get into it in a couple slides, but yes, you're
okay.
Smaller associations probably have to have a minimum of 3 now. But if you're like the second year medium size or larger or high end, 5 million's your base. So verification, best practices for verification. Never like we mentioned, never rely solely on certs or insurance certificates. The certificates are a snapshot. They don't guarantee coverage. You want to request the actual policy endorsements. You want to read, and you can have your agent do this. You can have a consultant. You can have the project manager, the property manager. They want to request the actual policies from the general contractor. Read the endorsements for the additional insured to make sure that you're covered. The waiver of subrogation and primary and non-contributory wording. I know I'm kind of throwing jargon at you, but that stuff's important, and your agent will know what it is. You want to check expiration dates. A cert from 6 months ago might already be invalid, right? The biggest pitfall I see around getting caught with a sub having no coverage is around that renewal date, because maybe they're a risky type of sub. Maybe they're a roofer, right? Roofers have a hard time obtaining really competitively priced insurance. So around their renewal is extremely kind of risky, because maybe they're waiting to the 12th or the 11th hour to secure coverage, and all of a sudden it lapsed for a few days, right? So that's kind of there's a minefield around expiration dates. And then lastly, indemnification agreements, often overlooked. And this kind of goes back to Alcar and Marcus, is even if insurance is in place, you want a strong indemnification clause in your contract. That way, the contractor legally agrees to defend and hold the association harmless if their work causes a claim. Think of it as a backup plan to your insurance. If coverage lapses or it's denied, this clause gives you another path to recover costs. So, very important when I talk about risk transfer with the contract, because a lot of the insurance language, both the general contractor's insurance and all their subs, actually fall back onto what the wording is in the contract. They don't just automatically give you that coverage. No, the endorsements read when required by contract, and that's why those contracts have to be the kind of leading edge of your planning. And then finally, the most common mistakes I see: boards don't verify general contractors insurance or the kind of the rules that the GC is putting on the subs. The GC may be insured, but maybe the subs aren't, because the GC is fast and loose with what their subs are doing, right? You don't know that. When you got to kind of flush that out when you're interviewing the GC.
Great. And yeah, one of the main things that, or there's a lot of good valuable points right there. One thing that kind of that I've been seeing a lot recently is, yeah, when these major capital projects are either about to start out, or on the horizon, or even during and while they're going on, there will be a lot of speculation on the board directly, and even the management group involved. And they'll be getting a lot of questions, fielding a lot of questions. So it's important really to just document what goes into this, really take it serious when entering into the contracts. Yeah, getting in, making sure that these provisions and clauses are included, indemnification clause included in these agreements is key.
Quick question based on something that Val said. That could be phenomenal. Well, actually, either answer is phenomenal. He didn't say that insurance policies have to be reviewed by an attorney, and he's probably going to tell you that there are very few attorneys who understand insurance policies. And he'll probably tell you that there are a whole lot of attorneys, board members, managers, and everybody else in the world who have never read a full insurance policy. There's a saying called Bill Russell from the Big I came up with, RTFP, which stands for read the it could be full policy, but he sometimes uses the F for another word. But my question is, so that's critical, but are you saying that if you are the insurance agent, are you talking about that you or other agents, or maybe it has to be insurance advisors, review these policies for your insureds? And do you do it on a hourly rate, a flat fee, as part of services? Because I could see you reviewing not just the GC's contract, but also the architects, the engineers, all the subs. How does it work? And what
Yeah,
does it
great.
cost?
Yeah, great question. Oftentimes with our larger property management clients, we have a very good relationship, or very thorough with our communication back and forth with the property management employee who's working with the board. And if they bring that to our attention, we'll help them review. It also is very important for the general contractor's insurance agent to do a thorough job and know that the general contractor is doing a $8 million project for a residential condo association that might otherwise be excluded unless it's with a carrier that allows that type of work. So I believe strongly there's a lot of very thorough and expert insurance advisors out there, but oftentimes we see basic exclusions that you'd be shocked that are in there. So it kind of goes twofold. Am I the agent for the board at the association? I'm happy to review that and kind of train them or teach them what I'd be looking for up front, so then they can do that once they kind of copy my system with the help of the property manager, or the property manager will bring us in and kind of do the same thing. So it's a bit of a one-off. We don't charge for it. I probably could. Certainly on larger associations, I am also a licensed insurance advisor, so I can be brought on for a fee, not even to be the insurance agent, just to pay attention to the insurance while the project is going on for a fee. But
the important thing is whether you charge or don't charge. That's your business decision. And to me, huge value added if you don't charge. But if you're saying that what boards and managers should be considering is speaking to a trusted insurance agent or advisor such as yourself, who knows what they're doing, who is the agent for the association, and that there are people, there are experts such as yourself who will look at these policies, a lot of the problems will go away, because it's sort of like me saying, gee, I've owned homes for 40 something years. I've never had one burned to the ground. Why should I buy insurance? And then let's say I don't have a mortgage. I don't, so no mortgage holder is telling me I have to have it. What are the chances? Well, I don't know. It's the reality is we know that disasters happen, fires happen, casualties happen, and we know that if you have a general contractor and the policy specifically excludes community associations, unless boards and managers follow your advice, because managers should not have to be and aren't the experts on insurance issues, and the board members aren't. If it's as simple as call your agent and maybe they offer that service, or can tell you where to where you can get it. I think that's huge. That would be the biggest takeaway that I would say for the people on this call.
Yeah, yeah, and
But keep going. You're doing great.
yeah, no,
Sorry for interrupting.
the selection of your insurance agent does matter. And you know, if you have one who's an expert in the field that you fall firmly into, you want to lean into them, and your renewal selection process matters, right? Not just leaving it to, your golf buddy, which, hey, I have plenty of people I golf with who I do their insurance too, but the fact of, oh, my brother-in-law does it, right? So, hey, if they're an expert, great, and they're offering you these services, great. But just the way the litigation has just kind of had gasoline poured on it since Surfside, you can't just assume that you're covered anymore. You have to almost assume you're not covered and work backwards into it. And we're happy to provide kind of those like checklists or kind of train the property managers as we go. But certainly an emerging risk for property managers here. There's a lot of pitfalls, even in their own coverage. But anyway.
You wrote a fascinating article on it. All your articles are extremely well written, and informative, and on lofty topics, but understandable. And I'm saying this as somebody who don't know you from Adam, have never met you in person, who saw an article on LinkedIn, started following you, and said, uh, gee, I thought there were only like 6 insurance agents in New England who really knew condominium insurance. This Valentine guy isn't bad. He's good. So, do you want to go into builder's risk and owner's interest? Because
Yeah, let's do it.
I almost assure you that boards and managers and attorneys, for the most part, have no idea what you're talking about and what you're looking at. So, why don't you explain?
Yeah, yep, good point. And to kind of one quick remark is I'm a certified bona fide insurance nerd. So I can nerd out on this stuff all day long and, talk about it forever. So please keep me on task so we can get through some of the most important items you're seeing from boards. So builder's risk, right? What is it and why does it matter? That's probably the most common question. So so right when you start a project or you're thinking about starting a project, you have your master policy, which, likely provides property coverage to your buildings and liability for the association, your classic slip and falls and other stuff like that. But your master policy, most likely, and there's rare exceptions, but most likely your master policy does not cover the property when it's under renovation or construction, right? This is where a builder's risk policy comes in place. A builder's risk policy is a type of property insurance that covers the building and materials during construction or renovation. It protects the association against things like fire, right, which is really common during construction. If you think about all the subs keeping their batteries plugged in overnight or their tools plugged in at the location overnight. Theft, right? Think of you get $100,000 of lumber and tools right on the other side of a fence. Vandalism or weather damage, right? Let's say you have a windstorm or a nor'easter rip through the project. That happened while the project is underway. Think of it as a temporary property policy that applies only for the duration of the project. So many boards assume that their existing master policy automatically covers construction work, but most policies exclude or limit coverage for major renovations. So the association, or something, and this is probably a question too, the association then implements a builder's risk policy for the course of construction, which then leads to another question. Hey, should the general contractor buy the builder's risk policy? And I think probably up until about 5 years ago, or I guess it depends on what agent you talk to. I think most boards would just say, "Oh yeah, it's in the cost of it's in the cost of the contract. The builder is going to buy the builder's risk policy." I'm a firm believer that that's not the right approach. I think the association should be the first named insured, the purchaser of the builder's risk policy, and here's why. If you're in the middle of a project and the entire project burns down or there's a major problem, do you want the check for the claim going to the builder who may now be underwater or owe subs a lot of money, or would you rather it go to the association and in their hand, and now you're in control of the money and what happens? Me personally, if I'm hired by the board, I'm making sure that the board buys the builder's risk. I have yet to hear a great argument for a builder owning and controlling the builder's risk policy, but I am open to changing my opinion if someone gives me one. All right. Any questions on that, or I can just dive right into
The only question we have so far, believe it or not, and maybe you're just giving so much information that people are furiously taking notes or whatever, which I think might be the case. I think this is excellent. The only question we have so far is sort of an odd one from an anonymous attendee. How to handle contractors who only hire workers that don't speak English? And if I can give an easy answer without getting into politics or anything else, well, we'll call the contractor who does speak English. And I'm assuming the person asking the question is either a manager or a board member and has the right to do that, because we don't want unit owners calling you contractors. It's aggravating and disruptive. So anyway, go on.
Yep. Yeah, that's slightly outside of the insurance, but I would say, you know, a key to running a massive renovation is strong communication. And if you have a broken barrier from the jump, probably not ideal, but I digress. So something to think about. But some of the best subcontractors I've ever seen don't speak English as their first language, so don't discount it. I think whoever's just running the project and the people at the top who are most involved with the communication, they need to have thorough communication with each other. And that's probably for the board's project manager or their property manager.
And there are great workers for contractors.
Yep.
Who don't speak English. And I'm guessing the workers probably speak some English and another language. I don't know about anybody else, but I keep taking courses every year on English as a first language. So the fact that somebody else knows two languages, they're probably a whole lot smarter than I am. So anyway, continue.
Same. I'm in the same boat, and probably not an idea. Listen, you want to be very transparent and thorough, and people are friendly and people want to talk to workers. But when it comes to like decisions and actually talking to the workers about things that are kind of important to the association, probably not ideal to have the unit owners out there asking questions and doing that. But hey, people are friendly, and I talk to people who are working on my street when I'm walking my dog. So to each their own. But anyways, I digress. So,
okay, I think that adequately answers that question. Let's get back to the slides.
Yeah.
So I think we wanted to discuss also how builder's risk plays into owner's interest.
Yes, great question. So oftentimes the builder's risk will have coverage for the property, the building while it's under renovation. And oftentimes it should have general liability with it as well. So if anything happens on the property during construction that happens and it's quirky, that's good to have, even though you've kind of transferred that risk to the general contractor. And that's all great. But another option that's become popular, and I tend to recommend it when there's a lot of money on the line, is an owner's interest policy. It's what I consider is kind of like the overlooked complement to your builder's risk, general liability, and what the general contractor has. It basically fills the gap. So the owner's interest policy is a liability policy designed for the condo association itself. It protects the owner, which is the association. Think of it as like the project owner, which is the association. If the contractor's liability insurance fails or doesn't fully respond, okay? So an example, a subcontractor injures somebody, or one, there's an injury on the property, or the subcontractor injures someone at the association or a guest or an Amazon driver, but their coverage lapses midterm, and it kicks up to the general contractor. But what happens if there's an injury, if there's a major issue, is nowadays, and Stephen and Jake can speak to this, the attorney is going to sue everybody. They're not going to just pick on the general contractor. They're going to sue the sub, they're going to sue the general contractor, and they're going to sue the association. And they're probably going to sue the property manager. What happens is all those entities basically have to rush to show proof that they're indemnified and covered by another person's insurance, which can take time, or they have to defend themselves until it comes into a time in the lawsuit that they then fall in line behind whoever's insurance is going to protect them. However, who picks up that defense cost? How long does that take? And, are you fully covered for the defense, or are you not? So for large projects with multiple contractors or high risk work like structural repairs or primes, those are prime situations where the owner's interest should be considered, because it's basically your prepaid defense if the proverbial dirt hits the fan and the GC's insurance, the sub's insurance are slow or don't fully respond, which is far more common than we would all like on these type of situations. So that kind of leads me into what, right? So who should carry what? Builder's risk, usually purchased by the project owner, which is the association, or sometimes the general contractor. I prefer the association. Whoever buys the builder's risk needs to make sure that all parties, the association, the GC, are named appropriately on the policy. Owner's interest is always purchased by the association. The GC doesn't care about the owner's interest. They have their own insurance. The owner's interest is always for the association, and it's always for their benefit only. That's it. All right. So, that's kind of the breakdown. Owner's interest, it's your last line of defense if something really goes bad on the project. Usually they cost, and I'm going to ballpark here for New England. They'll run the association about $4,500, maybe $4,000 to $7,000, let's call it. If you're spending $8 million in a project, I would like to believe that you can budget for $5,000 for a defense policy if the proverbial dirt hits the fan. It's super conservative, I get that, but I've worked enough projects and I've seen enough claims where an association will say, Val, I thought we were covered by our own liability and or the general contractor's liability insurance. And the answer is you are for most claims, but not all. And there's a lot of situations that can change that. Buy your prepaid defense to defend you guys if the proverbial dirt hits the fan. And that, in a nutshell, is an owner's interest policy.
And on the cost, to make it even reducing it down to the ridiculous, associations on $8 million typically would go for an association loan. I'm going to miss some of the bank, I'm sure, but South Shore Bank, Dan Peker, Brookline Bank, used to be West Blair. I think he might be doing a little bit, but it's sort of retired, semi-retired at least. So North Shore Bank, Rockland Trust. If you get a 25-year loan, and so that people can afford it because they can't afford a $80,000 special assessment upfront, due within 30 days, and you can pay it over 25 years, the $4,000 to $7,000 sounds even more silly, because spread over 25 years, we're talking about nickels and dimes tops.
And it really,
So keep going. I keep interrupting you,
yeah,
and
it's okay.
and you're way behind. You have a lot of slides to catch. and,
The owner,
I think this is amazing. I am not sure, especially in the builder's risk and owner's interest, that I've heard a conversation with this directed to managers and board members, and as I said, managers are not licensed insurance agents and not supposed to be. They're supposed to be able to call you or somebody else, the trusted agent. Um, so you're giving them the questions that they should be asking and the services that they can get. So keep going.
yep. And keep in mind, like to kind of, pull that all together is the builder's risk and the owner's interest policies are only for the duration of the project, right? These aren't, you don't need them forever. It's strictly for when kind of the first people hit the ground. And once you kind of get that the CO or the CO, the occupancy permit after the fact, then you revert back to your master policy, which I think we're going to cover in a couple minutes. All right,
Yeah.
next is the owner coverage, right? So, excuse me, the umbrella coverage. So this is kind of back to your association's insurance coverage. And we can talk about kind of the general contractor too. But I think most people are like, hey, does our association need an umbrella and why? And I would say it's imperative these days, and here's why. Your umbrella policy, if it's built correctly, will go over. When I say go over, think about, I'll talk about an auto lawsuit real quick. And I'll make it even easier. Think about your personal auto. On your personal auto, you have $250,000 in liability coverage. You are using your cell phone driving down the street, you're texting, not paying attention, and you hit a pedestrian and you really injure them. You severely injure them. Something we see every week. That $250,000 in your auto policy will quickly be exhausted. And the insurance company will say, hey, Mr. Feeney, we've paid the $250,000 you purchased from us to the injured party. You're on the hook for the rest. Good luck, right? So what do I do then? If I have no coverage, I'm probably going to go bankrupt. If I have an umbrella, that's when an umbrella kicks in and covers up to its limits the rest of the claim. So an umbrella policy protects everyone's like kind of behind in a worst case scenario. So that's what an umbrella kind of is, right? So umbrella is actually can also be a commercial policy, which again, it can be called an excess policy or umbrella. They're slightly different, but for the sake of conversation, let's assume they're the same. So your association will have an umbrella, right? So they'll either have a $1 million umbrella, which in today's environment, especially in New England, is too low. They'll have a 3 million, a 5 million, 10, 20, 25, 50, 100, depending on how big you are. It will sit over, if it's built correctly, your D&O coverage, your commercial general liability, over your non-owned and hired auto exposure, which is anyone driving on the association's behalf, running errands. Think of it maybe like you have a doorman and he runs down and gets coffees for the board meeting and he gets in a major accident. So the umbrella coverage is extra liability protection that sits on top of those policies. It kicks in when a claim exceeds those limits of the primary policies. For boards, this matters because lawsuits for major projects can be catastrophic, right? Multi-million-dollar injury claims or lawsuits alleging mismanagement by the board are not uncommon. And that's kind of where the D&O kicks in on projects. And why it's critical during major projects is capital projects introduce more people, more equipment, and potential hazards to your property, and more exposure basically means more ways a large claim can happen. So if your board is approving multi-million-dollar work, your umbrella should reflect that level of risk. A $1 million, umbrella might have been fine for routine operations, but not for a $3 million structural project. So starting point, if you have a large project, you probably want to go to 3 million, if not 5. And many associations now, especially with high-rise buildings or large projects, they're going higher. They're going 10 million, especially in urban areas where claims costs are higher. So your limits should be reviewed with both your insurance advisor and your attorney who's, setting up contracts for you. The right number, it really depends on your assets, project scope, and kind of risk tolerance. And then that kind of ties into one more thing. It's like the coverage gaps, right? So when I say before this, if constructed properly, a lot of them aren't constructed properly. Okay. Not every umbrella automatically sits over your D&O. Some only will go over your GL and your auto. Some won't go over workers' comp, right? You need to confirm this with your agent. It's got to be listed on the umbrella. So common kind of pitfalls for boards to avoid. Assuming the umbrella limits are one size fits all. They're not. Forgetting to review your umbrella placement after capital improvements. The building's risk profile might have changed. And not confirming the umbrella covers all the entities involved in any type of situation. So practical takeaway, umbrella insurance is relatively inexpensive compared to the protection it provides. The cost of adding like 5 million on top of what you currently have is a fraction of what even one major claim cost could one major claim could cost. So get it, have that discussion with your agent. Let's see if we want to kind of, if we're going to hold it just to the hour, we can kind of pick what we think.
We usually go over, mainly because I ask too many questions and don't know when to shut up. So keep talking.
All right.
Though before we finish, I have one that's important to me.
Okay.
Or at least to know the answer.
Okay.
How do we ensure, ENSURE, that we get notice of cancellation of the contractor's policy?
Great question.
I know if we're a lender, we can be a loss payee with lender loss payable provisions. But,
Yep.
but we're not lenders, it's the contractor.
So,
and I know on some you said the association buys the policies, and that's easy. But how about the contractor's own policy?
yes.
We want to know if it's canceled.
Correct. So there's a few scenarios. One is if you rely on the contractor's policy endorsement that says he has blanket additional insured status to anyone who requires it by contract, you won't know because you won't be listed on the policy. The blanket AI endorsement, blanket additional insured endorsement will cover you as long as it's in the contract. The only way to really be alerted is if you're actually listed as a scheduled additional insured on the policy, which can be requested. I don't think it's overly unique. I think the way blanket AI endorsements were created was to prevent, agents and underwriters having to list, 200 people on a policy, and it makes life easier for everybody, but it doesn't alert you when a policy is canceled. So, the practical solution is to force the GC to list you on a scheduled AI endorsement, or the other kind of layman's term approach is just to hound them every so often for their cert.
But there could be kickback.
Yep.
From the contractor's carrier, from the contractor,
Yep.
from somebody.
It's going to cost the contractor another $100 to $150 on their policy to schedule you as an additional insured. They may not like that. Their agent might not like it. There might be some pushback. And I guess the question, or the question they have to answer is, why don't you want us to know if it's just other than cost? But that's a great question. I really haven't heard that, which I love.
And I haven't heard, because I don't think, maybe it doesn't exist. I haven't heard the perfect answer, but on what you said, that comes very close, because if it's solely an issue with the carrier and the contractor, or $100, $150, if we were the attorneys, we happen to charge a little more than $150 an hour. Better pay the $100, have the association pay the $150. The contractor's happy. You get notice of cancellation, and life is good.
Yeah, and hopefully an issue you don't run into too often. I'd like to believe a general contractor who's running an $8 million project isn't going to allow their insurance to expire or be canceled. But that kind of falls back on, if I'm being honest, probably falls back on the project manager or the property manager who's handling the construction project themselves, on how much they want to be a pest to the insurance agent for the GC, which, we insure a lot of general contractors. We probably get upwards to 1,000 cert requests a day, and it just is what it is, and we provide them. So I get it. Uh,
But if a manager has to call the insurance agent for the contractor once a month, once a day, 10 times a
yeah,
day,
yep, that, yep,
they should be charging for it. They should be
yeah.
charging the association for that work as part of the work that they're doing on the oversight. Um, because it's more to do it right. It's more time. You are enlightening. I'm not sure about anybody else, but I assume everybody. But you're certainly enlightening me on a lot of topics that now we know to ask the questions. But I detracted you again with the cancellation question, so I'm glad you never heard it before, or you don't hear it often. But you can continue on. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
It's 2 o'clock. Anybody who wants to hang around, I know some of you might have to leave. You will get a copy of uh, the recording, but usually if we can go another 10 minutes and anybody's interested in hearing more about what maybe we all didn't know, um, either stay on or wait till Monday or Tuesday to get the recording.
So
Keep going.
let's do this. Let's go through summary and best practices, and then for extra credit, you can stay after class for the workers' comp, replacement and reconstruction cost insurance, and cost escalation and market forces that we discussed. But for now, we can do a summary and best practices for those that may need to leave early, and then
Okay, but before I leave, can you tell me what I'll get for the extra credit?
you get 5 extra points on your final exam.
Okay, go.
Yeah, great, great idea. I think, hey, we've covered a lot in insurance. It can be super boring. I've been told that I do make insurance make sense, and I love it, so I'm excited. But we've covered a lot, from contractors insurance to builders risk, umbrella coverage, workers comp, which we'll touch on, but I don't want to make it, brain surgery, and replacement cost coverage for your building, which I do think is important. The big theme is these exposures can be managed if you know where to look for them, and if you can ask the right questions early, right? So every capital project should have a simple insurance checklist. Confirm required coverages for all contractors, and that they're going to be passing those same requirements down to their subs. What I mean is, if you're requiring a contractor to have $10 million in GL coverage, he shouldn't then he or she should then not turn around and only require $1 million umbrella for all their subs. It should be pretty uniform, which us insurance people kind of can't stand, because there's an argument to be made that everyone's just making their coverage higher and higher and higher. It's impossible, but you don't care about that as a board. You're in the business of protecting yourself. You want to verify limits and endorsements, right? I talked about those pesky endorsements. Are you truly an AI in the contractor's policy? Do they have a waiver of subrogation? Do they have coverage for residential condo associations? You want to review, are you going to buy your builder's risk? And is the owner's interest policy worth it for you guys during this project, and what the options are? You want to update replacement cost appraisals and policy limits. The builder's risk policy, is it the proper amount of coverage? After the project's done, are you increasing your property coverage on your master policy? If you just put $8 million, now maybe half it's labor, but if you just put $4 million into your building, you can't then just keep your building coverage the same on your master policy. That doesn't make sense. You want to align your umbrella coverage with kind of the project's risk profile. And so then these checklists becomes part of your project planning, just like budgets and timelines. You want to engage professionals super early. I love when people call me and they're like, hey, we're kicking the tires on a project next year. Like, love that, right? The most common kind of mistakes I see happen because boards involve their insurance advisor too late, and then they are reactive, right? The contract's already signed. Hey, we just signed a contract to do a $10 million project. Here are the insurance requirements. Oh, great, right? Like that doesn't really help. You want to bring experts in during the planning so they can spot gaps before they become problems. Set expectations with the general contractor and how they're going to handle subs, and even set expectations with unit owners, right? You really got to be upfront and transparent with how it's all going to go down and how often they're going to hear from you with updates, right? How often are you going to update the association and all the unit owners? That avoids confusion. It avoids delays, and it avoids finger pointing if something goes wrong, right? So major projects are a perfect time to reset your insurance program. Even after the work is complete, revisit your policies, replacement costs, umbrella, and liability exposures. Those all shift when the building's value increases significantly. And then, finally, I would say we covered a lot of ground. If you're feeling overwhelmed and you're like, gosh, we're going to do a project and this sounds like a nightmare, don't worry, right? Like, the goal isn't for you to become an insurance expert. The goal is for you to know what questions to ask and when to involve the experts. I'm always happy to talk through specifics after the session. Sometimes a 5 or 10-minute phone call is all it takes to confirm you're on the right track and to kind of calm your fears. So, find me on LinkedIn. You'll see my cell phone number. Call me whenever you want, and I'm happy to talk with people about stuff.
There's some of the contact info as well. But if we want to get to, I mean, we can probably get a quick rundown.
All right, let me just make a 20-second comment on cost escalation. So we talked about the tragic earthquake and tsunami at the beginning of this. And what does that do to construction costs? We have in here tariffs in 2024. I can't imagine any condominium association or anybody else in the world was talking about, well, how do we deal with 15 or 50% tariffs because it didn't exist as what was going on in the world, but it happens. You just have to be careful because the costs do increase. But
yeah, I think it's probably the number one issue I see when I get brought into a board, right? They'll call me for something that's usually, fairly straightforward, like, hey, our renewal's in 3 months. Our agent's selling us, the policy we have is the best one, but it's got a huge increase on it. We're just not feeling they're doing a good enough job, or whatever the reason may be. They bring me in. One of the first things I see is the building coverage is never enough, right? So, most boards rely on outdated numbers from their original construction or from generic estimates. The construction costs and tariffs have absolutely construction costs mainly. Construction costs since 2020 have multiplied in a factor of, I don't know, 2, 3, 4. Just if you used to insure your building for $5 million in 2024 and it hasn't increased significantly, you're not in a great spot if there's a total loss. Insurance carriers are scrutinizing this number more closely than ever. If your building is insured for $10 million but costs $15 million to rebuild, you won't have enough coverage in a total loss. And you'll also get penalized by the policy language that says you have to be insured for the full value for all the coverage to kick in. So, major projects are the perfect time to reassess these values. You already have contractors and cost estimates on hand. It's a great time to review it all. And one thing that I've started to introduce, because oftentimes our clients rely on us for replacement costs. And yeah, I feel like I'm pretty good with, what a number should be or a ballpark. But to be honest, there's such a large sliding scale between like a high-end condo, an ultra high-end condo, or your kind of regular run-of-the-mill really nice condo that you can make the argument to slide that scale between $400 per square foot and like $1,200 in the snap of a finger. And I'm not a construction expert, so what we've been kind of starting to lean on or advise condo associations is go ahead and get an independent appraisal. Get a professional valuation that factors in labor, materials, and like today's pricing. And I'm not looking to spend my clients' money, but I think it's a very well, I think it's something to spend. It's a good thing to spend
But,
money on to get a baseline of where you are today. Because if I'm
but,
saying, yeah, go ahead.
but legally,
Yeah,
and I apologize again,
yeah,
legally, except if there's this unique category of special relationship with the agent, which I don't know what it means. That's your brother-in-law. Uh, the insurer and the agent are not guarantors of the stated limits of the policy. So if you have a policy for 30 million and it goes down and it's 50 million to rebuild, first thing the association will do is call the agent, uh, call the attorney, let's sue the carrier, let's sue everybody. And the answer, to put it in very simplistic terms and not to uh, dis dismiss the talents of the insurance advisors, is, listen, it's like, this is more judge saying than an insurance agent. It's like McDonald's. You you wanted $30 million of insurance. We gave you 30 million. If you had asked us and bought 50 million, we would have done that. But we have no better idea than anybody else. We're not experts at the cost of construction. So I wish that every association in the country would get an independent insurance replacement or reconstruction cost appraisal. I'm going to keep saying it. I've been saying it for a few years. Not many people not as many people are doing it as I think should. Just go ahead. Sorry.
yeah. No, and I do think I would classify it as not really emerging. It's fully emerged, but it's not something that many agents are doing. And to be honest, it's a bit of a CYA for me, right? Like, I if I go, like I said, I'm not a reconstruction specialist. So when I go into condo, I have tools that I can use from the insurance industry that might give me a general idea. But to your point, I would say out of the 50 insurance companies I work with on large properties, less than half actually are going to come back and say, hey, we think that's a little low. Most of them are like, you tell us what you want for building coverage and we'll give it to you. And then and then they'll have a co-insurance clause. So what I think is the best, approach is get that appraisal. And I haven't really figured out how often is the right number yet. It's kind of a feel. I'm guessing probably once every 5 years would be sufficient for now. And you can convince me otherwise. But like, get that first one. I think getting that first one and in reviewing it with the board and your insurance agent will really go a long way, because then you can at least you can get a general idea if you look back at a yearly basis and look at like inflation costs and CPI, you can probably be pretty close. But I
Yeah,
think right now,
or increases in the cost of lumber, whatever it might be.
yeah, whatever you want to use. But I think right now we're in a bit of a conundrum or wild west where since 2020, I don't know how much buildings have increased in cost. I know it's significant. I know the vast majority of my boards, every renewal, I'm like, should we consider increasing by 20%? Should we, what's right? What's the right feel? Most boards agree. And they're like, we should do something. We probably shouldn't stay stagnant. And because the vast majority of boards and I agree that we shouldn't stay stagnant, that's enough reason to justify getting an appraisal.
Okay, good. Could you also confirm that true guaranteed replacement cost insurance, which rebuilds the building for whatever it costs, has become much more difficult to obtain, or is
Yeah,
it even obtainable?
that's gone. That's gone. That's no longer the case. So when I first started in insurance, I was a personal lines agent, so home, auto, umbrella. All the best homeowners insurance carriers included guaranteed replacement costs. So if your house burned down, and at the time they first issued your policy, it was insured to 100% full value based on their calculations. Forever, they would do guaranteed replacement costs, meaning if there was a large hurricane and there was a spike in supply and labor, so your house wasn't going to be built for the same amount you had insured for, is going to be 50% higher, because they had guaranteed replacement costs on the policy, they were going to rebuild it no matter what the cost. Then what happened is during 2020 and the COVID and the inflation spike, they started getting burned on that. So they pulled that all back. You don't see that anymore anywhere. So now there's a few different things. Typically, you want to see two things on your policy, or one of two things. One is you don't want to see any co-insurance clause, especially 100%. Man, 100% has some teeth to it. That means if you're not fully insured to what we decide at a total loss, we're going to penalize you. Right? So if you have to have co-insurance, you want it at 80%, which gives you that 20% wiggle room to be within. Or what is more common is agreed value. So that basically protects the insurance company, saying, hey, you tell us what you think it should be insured for, or what you want to insure it for, and we'll say agreed value, which completely wipes out the co-insurance, and that's your max amount available for the building at a time of a total loss. So I would say pretty much everybody I shouldn't say everybody, I should never say that. In a perfect scenario, if you have a very strong, if your insurability is strong and you have a good risk profile, you're at agreed value. Oftentimes, buildings down in Florida or at risky areas, or that have claims in the past, they don't have that. They're not able to get agreed value. They're going to be stuck with something between 80%, 90%, or 100% co-insurance clause, which then further justifies getting that appraisal. Because if there's a large loss, you bet your ass the insurance company is going to use that co-insurance clause, because it's in the policy. It's not in the policy for you. It's in the policy for the insurance company, written by attorneys to defend the insurance company. That's guess all I'll say about that.
And not to totally mess you up, but I can't leave insurance appraisals and all that without giving you the opportunity to say a word or two on ordinance of law coverage.
Yes, ordinance or law coverage, huge. I don't really see it overlooked as much as you would think, but oftentimes it's too low. And so basically the core summary of ordinance of law coverage is, if you own an association built in Boston that was built in 1810, and it completely burns to the ground, the building is going to cost much more to replace than you believe, because updating to code. Right? So instead of 60 amp, it's going to need 200 amp. It might need an elevator. It might need different electrical, different HVAC, different plumbing, handicap accessible, all sorts of stuff that it is right to do, but also comes at an increased cost of construction. The insurance company is not in the business of adding that for free. It's a coverage that you need to have on your policy. Most times on large policies, you'll see a $500K or $1 million thrown in. There's different coverages, A, B, and C. I won't get into the difference. But one of the big pieces of it too is, what if the building's partially destroyed and the city or a local municipality says you have to completely tear it down? The insurance company is also not in the business of demoing your building when it's only partially destroyed. So ordinance of law also covers that exposure if built correctly. So extremely important and not to be overlooked.
And we're not doing justice to any of these topics.
No. I made that so fast and quick that
no. It's a great answer, but you said on LinkedIn, and maybe you can shout it out, that, or maybe it's on one of the slides, that people can call your cell phone 24/7. So I'm thinking of calling Saturday at midnight. But people can call you. I assume you're willing to answer questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, part of my job is to be a consultant. I take a very consultative approach to clients and friends and family and people who saw my stuff on LinkedIn. I get called pretty much every week with someone asking a question, and happy to do so. Of course, I'm not going to, answer. You're not going to answer your questions for an hour if you're not a client, but I'll definitely give you the nitty gritty over 10 or 15 minutes of a phone call. Happy to do so. You know, from a workers' comp standpoint, you know, I'll say a few things, but I also want to mention one thing in particular is, you know, hey, when you're looking at the contractors and the general contractors insurance, obviously you want to verify that their workers' comp coverage is in place. And you want to make sure that there are steps in place that the contractor is verifying all the subcontractors' workers' comp as well. Your project manager can also look up every sub. If you got a list of subs from the contractor before the project, they can look up every single one of those contractors, subcontractors, and they can also look up their what we call mod, their expense, you know, experience modifier, which essentially is if they have large claims or a lot of claims in the past, the number will reflect that. That's probably a topic for a different day, but just know that you can find out if a subcontractor has a lot of injuries on the job site, and you can certainly take it upon yourself to research that. The one thing I do want to mention is most associations, putting the projects to the side for a minute, most large condo associations do not have their own workers' comp coverage because the way they look at it is they don't have any employees and they outsource everything to the property manager. What I've seen or what I've become a fan of is an association can put a small workers' comp policy in place that's insignificant in cost that covers you basically if anyone comes on your property to work and they don't have coverage, you're not responsible if they get, you know, the board's not going to be exposed if they get hurt. You have like basically a base workers' comp policy in place to protect you against any unit owner having like a painter or a plumber come in, which is standard operating procedure. And if they get hurt, because the association, it's hard for them to force unit owners to be requiring insurance certs for workers' comp from a plumber when they have a leaky faucet or a leaky toilet at, you know, or their heat's not working at 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning. So I'm a strong proponent of large associations, heck, even small ones, but I'm picking on large ones. Have your own workers' comp policy. It kind of is like the owner's interest policy, but for workers' comp. It just protects you if something really quirky happens to someone, the association, or a unit owner hired to come on your property and do work.
But there's one question that I think is important, even if it's that the person should call you and you give the cell phone number. The question is, can you recommend an independent insurance replacement cost appraisal?
This is something that I would love to lean on this, you know, our networking friends at the various associations we're involved with. I'm not going to give anyone's name off the top of my head here because it is a newer trend for me. And I haven't really found someone that I just think is amazing yet. So I'll, you know,
I'm had a tough time with other also very good agents. I have one person who gave me two names, but one was sort of like a solo, but claims he's the only licensed insurance replacement cost appraiser, but in New England. And then there's a company in Canada, but I'm not getting great answers either.
yeah. Yeah, so that's good. That's kind of a wrap on the workers' comp, and then we can finish up with anything you guys think is relevant. Jake, if you kind of want to take a peek at the other slides.
No, I think that kind of covered, I mean, with the workers' comp too, it's, yeah, that's an important one that I've heard of examples recently of people or contractors who were brought in to do work and specifically as to unit owner work that might delve into a common area, something goes wrong, and it can be a lot to unravel. So just an important area to kind of note that can go under the radar. But we unpacked a lot. D&O, I think the spotlight being on board members at this point is causing that to be as Val mentioned, a necessity. Having D&O coverage as a board member is really needed. I just realized my name's spelled Jack here too. My name's Jake, by the way. But this is our contact info. If you want to kind of follow up, happy to kind of discuss these areas a little more or a lot more and value. We're a wealth of knowledge today, helped out a lot in this what we consider to be an advanced session. This would be delving into the
Val,
nitty gritty.
Val, if you're willing to give out your cell phone number, because it's not listed there,
Yeah,
I'll give out mine.
yeah, absolutely. Hey, I'm an insurance advisor, and but hey, I'm also I joke with people too when we have long conversations. At the end, I say, well, hey, you also forget that I am in charge of sales for my office. So, do you need a new agent? So, my cell phone number is 857-383-0558, and you can call me anytime. And if I don't pick up, I'll get back to you.
And mine is 781-413-5226. And because I'm not as succinct as Val, his 15 minutes, for me, I have to get 45 because it just takes me that much longer to spit things out. But I personally found this to be amazing. Um, I hope that I'm going to re-listen to the recording. I hope that those who attended or signed up do the same, because I think there was an excessive amount of information that we crammed, or Val crammed, despite my interruptions, into an hour and 26 minutes. But with a million questions, I would think that are left. So if you need the 15 minutes of fame with Val to clarify an issue that he spoke about today, give him a call, re-listen to the recording. I think the good news is that the boards and managers do not have to be experts on any of this, that there's a required license to be a property and casualty insurance person, and then more expertise for community association condominium insurance people, just like calling in your engineer or your CPA or your lawyer. A beautiful answer to almost everything you said was, if they call their agent and it's a decent agent, they should get the proper direction or decent direction.
Yes, yes, sir. And guys, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Anytime you guys want me to come be a nerd on some of this insurance stuff, happy to do so. Happy to be a resource for anyone in the industry, or really anyone who just can't wrap their head around an insurance item with their association.
Excellent. No, this was a pleasure, Val, and we'll definitely be in touch, if not on this, on in the community association world. And appreciate your time and brilliance in this.
But final question. So you're in Walpole, putting aside your high school team, which seems to be in the Super Bowl every year. Are you a Patriots fan?
I am a
or used
diehard
to be?
Patriots fan. I live in the shadow of Gillette Stadium. So I walk there often, but I will say it's funny. I'm new to
You
Walpole.
said you were around.
Oh no, I'm a diehard Patriots fan.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
actually I'm gonna enjoy.
Jake does some tailgates that would like to have you.
Would love to
No,
be there.
seriously.
Yep, I'm gonna enjoy the next few years of Mike Vrabel before the media runs him out of town. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for my final note, to be totally awful, my little story is, I live in the condominium unit that Mike Vrabel bought, and I did the condominium documents for, and did his closing for the developer 23 years ago, when he first was traded from the Steelers to the Patriots. So that's my only claim to fame. And for any sports fans, Jake was at Gillette for training camp. I don't think he's trying out for the team, but he did see somebody's a fan of Hey K Adams, who is visiting different training camps, and today is with the Patriots.
Oh,
Is that
awesome.
so?
Love it. Love it.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks everybody.
All right. See ya.
All right. Thanks, everyone. That will be the end of the session.
I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I agree.